Yo, what is going on, guys? J.Yumeko here, and today we're back with some more Tomboys Need Love 2. Last time we left off, we officially became a couple. That was a little bit before that, but we got a little bit freaky. But the most important thing at this point is that we are, I believe, pretty much like officially on the path of Chris. So I don't think there should be any more like temptations to go over to Sophie because she's a lying bitch. But yeah. So without further ado, let's jump on right back into it. I kind of forget exactly where we left off. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be completely transparent on that front. Okay. My stomach. It hurts. It hurts so much. In a turn of events that I saw coming a mile away, I awoke to a terrible stomachache. I couldn't bring myself to throw up the delicious food that Chris had fed me, nor could I tell her to stop. Oh yes, Chris made it, well, Chris, quote unquote, because it was actually Kai's mother, fed us a bunch of food. So, literally spoon-fed. I couldn't bring myself to throw up, yeah. My weakness had gotten the better of me, and now I was paying the price. No, I can't lose like this. I have a date to go on. I have to... I doubled over, clenching my stomach. Despite being in pain, I glanced up at the clock on the wall. It's okay. I've still got time. I'll sneak into the bathroom and then... Morning, Kai. What? The second I opened my bedroom door, Chris was waiting outside. Chris, what are you doing here? Weren't you going to go home to get ready? That's the plan, but before that I wanted to make sure you're awake. We did go to bed pretty late last night after all. Oh, yeah, I guess we did. Since I had slept for a few hours upon returning home, I was in no hurry to go back to sleep after dinner. Instead, I stayed up for a while and watched TV in the living room. With Chris sitting beside me, we kept the volume low and watched whatever was on, slowly allowing ourselves to succumb to fatigue. Once Chris had nodded off, I placed a blanket over her and made sure she was comfortable. I then had returned to my room, and before long, I was fast asleep. So, have you picked out what you're gonna wear? What about venues? Do you have a plan for today's date? And make sure you're cashed up. You're paying today after all. Do you think you'll have enough? Jeez, temper your expectations a little, would you? You know that my organizational skills are awful. I'll be deferring to you as much as I can today, so if you don't have any plans, then neither do I. How unreliable. You mean you haven't planned this for months? Of course not. Don't be unreasonable. I bet you already planned out what you're gonna do if you went on a date with Sophie. Oh, come on. Chris, this will be the first date I've ever been on. I have no idea where I should take you or how I should act. But isn't that part of what makes it enjoyable? If you know everything that's gonna happen ahead of time, where's the fun in that? My only plan for today is to have fun with my girlfriend. So if you want a more detailed answer than that, you're asking the wrong person. Sheesh, you really are hopeless. Oh well, I kind of expected that you just want to wing it. That's why I promised myself that I would show up on time. I consider today to be a win. Oh, that if you showed up on time, I'd consider today to be a win. You know, you could set your expectations a little bit higher than that. If I do, you'll just disappoint me. So for today, my expectations for you are at rock bottom. Thanks. You're welcome. Now remember, we're meeting up at 9 a.m. in front of the station. 9 is when we meet, not when you leave the house, so you need to be out the door well before then. Also, no video games or TV. I don't want you getting distracted and losing track of time. Let's see, what else? Bring lots of money? Right. And don't forget your phone either in case we... Beep, 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 beep. Oh, hang on a second. Chris pulled out her mobile phone and checked on whatever was causing it to beep. It looks like my time's up. I've got to start getting a move on. Already? We still have another hour before we need to go. Don't underestimate the amount of time it takes for a woman to prepare for a date. As if you'd know. Well, whatever. Take as much time as you need. Just make sure you aren't late, okay? Like that'll happen. See you soon, Kai, and make sure to think about where you want to go. With the clock now ticking, Chris waved goodbye and returned to her own home to prepare. The next time we met, the two of us would be out on our first date, dressed to impress and more than a little nervous. Phew, it's finally happening, huh? Another hour and I'll be heading off to go on my first date. Alright, Chris is all amped up and raring to go, so I should make an effort to act the same. I'll pull out my nicest clothes, scrounge up whatever cash I have lying around, and gurgle. Uh-oh. Having kindly waited until Chris left the building, my stomach suddenly flared up in pain. I ran to the bathroom as quickly as I could, putting our date in the back of my mind as I heeded a far more powerful calling. Well, we've all been there once in our lives. You're late. Yeah, I know. I panted heavily and lowered my head as I met up with Chris. Damn, she looks good in a dress, though. And the sleeveless. Oh man, that's great. Due to unfortunate and rather disgusting circumstances, I wound up preparing at the last minute and rushed out the door in a frenzy. Thankfully, I had overestimated the amount of time required to reach my destination, despite my last minute departure, I was only a few minutes late. Well, that's fine. This is still within my calculations. More importantly... Chris's face started to go red as she nervously fidgeted around. I stared at her quizzically for a moment as I tried to figure out what was wrong. After a few seconds of silent contemplation, I reached my conclusion. Gotta pee? God damn it, Kai! I'm kidding. You look great, Chris. That outfit really suits you. Really? I knew you'd like it. I was hesitant to buy something so revealing, but I think I made the right choice. This is Chris's idea of revealing? Actually, you're not so bad looking yourself. Not quite classy, but definitely an improvement. Gee, thanks. So, what's on the agenda? Did you come up with anything during your extended preparation time? That was supposed to be your job. But yeah, I've got a few ideas. Woo! I knew I could count on you, Chris! What's up first? Bowling? The movies? An arcade? If you can come up with ideas that easily, why'd you shove that role onto me? Because I'm a considerate person. How's that being... No, forget it. I'm not playing into your hand. Instead, I'm gonna steal one of your ideas. Bowling it is. Wait, seriously? You can't do that. Come up with your own ideas. We're on the same team, Kai. Your ideas are my ideas. Cheater. I bet you just couldn't come up with anything better. Of course I did. Don't be silly. Now let's get moving. We have a big day ahead of us, so... We... should really... Once again, Chris began to fidget as her face turned red. You really do need to pee now, don't you? Nod. Go ahead, I'll wait here. Faced with one more delay, I chuckled to myself and sat down on a nearby bench. I arrived late because of stomach problems, and now we're being delayed again because Chris forgot to pee before she left. We're not very good at this, are we? I waited with a smile on my face and watched random people pass me by. While this morning hadn't gone as I'd pictured so far, I wasn't unhappy. Honestly, I didn't have any particular hopes or goals for today. To me, rude as it may be to Chris, this was just another weekend being spent with my best friend. If there was some factor that made this date any different than our usual outings, it was yet to hit me. Chris is taking a while. Maybe I should send her a message. I don't want to wait around here all... Morning, Kai! Alone? My eyes widened as an unexpected party suddenly made their appearance. Sophie? What are you doing here? Oh, just checking on how things are going. Checking on how things are... Wait a minute, you're following me? I'm sorry, I know how this must seem. I was just so anxious about your date with Chris that I couldn't help myself. Anxious about what? What did you think would happen exactly? Chris and I have gone out plenty of times in the past. Why should something bad happen this time? Not bad per se, not for her at least. But as for me, Sophie's face turned red as she gulped and stiffened her expression. Kai, I was serious about what I said at school. Even if we can't be together as a couple, I want us to be close. Chris may not like it, but you feel the same way I do, don't you? Don't you like me? It's not a matter of whether I like you or not. It's just not that simple, okay? Chris and I are a couple, I know. But even married men sometimes have a piece on the side. And that may be so, but... Oh, wow. No, wait a second. Wait a second. What did you just say? Before I knew what had hit me, Sophie pushed me up against the wall. Her melancholy and hesitation disappeared in an instant, allowing a smirk to sprawl across her face as her body pressed against mine. Sophie, what are you... Don't ask stupid questions. In a serious tone of voice, Sophie quickly cut me off. There was no longer any hint of shyness or affection in her voice. She spoke in a stern manner, completely unlike her tone from a few moments ago. You know, I've met a lot of gutless guys for the past couple of years, but you really take the cake. Here I am telling you that our feelings are mutual and that I could be your mistress, yet you still keep up this infuriating air of ignorance. In the end, I suppose I have no choice but to take a more direct approach. Displaying concise, practical movements, Sophie quickly undid her belt and unbuttoned her pants with one hand. Using her other hand, Sophie pulled her shirt forward, giving me a clear view of her cleavage. Sophie, are you out of your mind? We're in the middle of a public street. What if someone sees you? I don't mind. It's not like I lose anything by being seen. Though if you really don't like the idea of someone else seeing my body, I'd be happy to follow you somewhere more private. Sophie looked up at me with lust in her eyes. The smirk on her face and excitement in her voice caused my heart to jump, making me dare to think about accepting her offer. But before I could say something impulsive, the cough of a nervous passerby turned me to reality. No, stop it, Sophie! We can't do this! Sophie narrowed her eyes as I summoned my courage and resisted her invitation. You don't want to get closer to me? I didn't say that. Then you do want to get closer to me. I didn't say that either. Annoyed by my response, Sophie removed her hand from her pants and pushed against my chest. You can't be so indecisive, Kai. Either you want me or you don't. It's that simple. Sophie removed her other hand from her shirt and brought it to my lower body. Yeah! How cute! I unconsciously yelped in surprise as Sophie grabbed my genitals through my pants. Even with 2 layers of fabric separating our skin, the sensation sent a shiver up my spine. Sophie, you really need to stop this. Oh, is that right? And who's gonna make me? Sophie started to move her hand back and forth, rubbing my penis while looking me in the eye. If you really wanted me to stop, you wouldn't just stand there and take it. And the truth is, you actually do want me, don't you? No, it's not. I mean, it's not that I don't want to, but I tried to turn my face away, but Sophie moved her hand from my chest and grabbed hold of my chin. Stop overthinking this, Kai. Do you want me? Yes or no? Shit! Damn! This bitch is persistent, isn't she? No, not main menu. Return. Okay! Well, I mean, we obviously know what choice I'm going with at this point. I'm pushing Sophie away, this fucking slut, man. Listen, I'm just saying, she switches personalities at the drop of a hat. She's clearly manipulative. I wouldn't be surprised if she actually did do all the shit that she was, that the other girls in the class were accusing her of doing. I would not be surprised at all. But we're loyal to Chris, so you know we're not going to let this slide. I shook my head and raised my arms. I pushed Sophie away, careful not to accidentally shove her into oncoming traffic. With my pitiful upper body strength, Sophie barely moved, but even so, my message was conveyed. I see. You've got more balls than I thought, Kai. Despite being rejected, Sophie didn't appear to mind at all. Rather, a delighted smirk crept onto her face as she glanced to the side. Too bad for you that it took you so long to reach your decision. I followed Sophie's gaze, and in an instant I knew exactly what she meant. Kai? Why are you... Moving even further away from Sophie, I turned my entire body in Chris's direction and started walking towards her. Chris, this isn't what it looks like. I know how this must seem, okay? But you're wrong. I'll explain everything, so please just... I stopped mid-sentence as I noticed a change in Chris. Originally paralyzed by shock, Chris was now shaking with anger. With her fists clenched by her sides and her teeth gritted tightly, Chris looked like she was about to lose it at any moment. Our first date! Our very first date before we can even go anywhere or do anything! This is what you're up to! Of all the people you could have been with and all of the things you could have done, this is what you chose. Not even 10 minutes into our first date, you're choosing that whore over me. Though still furious, tears began to form in the corners of Chris's eyes, and her throat started to quiver. I should have known. From the very beginning, Sophie was the one you wanted to be with, not me. Every day I listened to you prattle on about her like she was some kind of angel. You ignored everything bad you heard about her and continued to believe in her wholeheartedly. No matter what she said or did, you just brushed it aside, saying it was a lie or a rumor. Even when she badmouthed me, your best friend, your girlfriend, still you took her side. I never had a chance from the beginning, did I? Tears began to stream down Chris's cheeks as her voice grew louder. I wanted to tell her that she was wrong. I wanted to explain to Chris that this was all a big misunderstanding, but I couldn't do it. So much of what Chris said was true. I knew better than anyone how much pain I'd put Chris through, and how much damage my naivety had caused. That's why, until Chris let out everything that she'd kept bottled up, I needed to listen in silence. You know, when you asked me out, I thought that my patience and devotion had finally paid off. I thought that I'd finally had you all to myself. I thought that at long last I wouldn't need to stand by and watch while you eyed every other girl who came by. I thought that maybe you and I could... Chris's voice softened as her anger turned into sadness. She wiped away her tears and cleared her throat, then tried her best to continue. Forget it. It doesn't matter what I thought, because I realize now that I was just fooling myself. Even if I put on some stupid dress and try to act like every other love-struck boy crazy girl my age, that won't magically make me into the girl you want me to be. I'm done trying to appeal to you, Kai. I'm also done pretending to be something that I'm not. And if you can't accept that, then I'm done with our friendship too. Engaged and distraught, Chris turned her back on us and ran away as quickly as she could. I tried to reach forward and grab her, but the moment I did, I felt something hold me back. Don't bother, Kai. It's too late for that. The damage has already been done. I clenched my fists as I spun around to face Sophie, intent on striking the girl who dared to cause Chris such pain. But the second I saw my reflection in Sophie's eyes, I realized that she wasn't the one at fault here. I was. What a shame. Of all the couples I've messed with, I thought that you two might actually have a chance. Oh well. What's done is done. No use brooding over it. Instead, why don't we pick up where we left off? Forget about Christine and indulge in me for a while, okay? Sophie wrapped both of her arms around my neck and leaned forward, as though she planned on kissing me. I called it! I knew this bitch did all that shit! This fucking whore. Don't give me that shit. Huh? I pushed Sophie away and took a step back. Don't try to sound sympathetic and kind now. You're the cause of all this. How can you act like this doesn't concern you? Well, excuse you. You're the one with a girlfriend, not me. I can do whatever I please. No, you can't. Just because you're not a part of something, that doesn't give you the right to fuck it up. You knew we would be here. When we were talking in the classroom, you overheard all of it. Worse, you knew all along how I felt about you, and you've been riling Chris up on a daily basis, planting these ideas in her head. You planned this all out. This was your goal from the beginning, wasn't it? A small part of me hoped that Sophie would refute my claims. I dared to believe that I was wrong, that perhaps I was just pushing all the blame onto Sophie in an attempt to get rid of my own guilt, and that she really was just competing with Chris for my affection. But even I wasn't naive enough to fully believe such a fantasy. So you thought it over that thoroughly, yet you still played into the palm of my hand. You truly are gullible. You truly are a gullible, lust-driven fool, Kai. I clenched my teeth as hard as I could, desperately trying to hold myself back. Never in my life had I felt so angry and betrayed, deceived so completely by someone I thought I had feelings for. But now, my delusion had been broken. I finally saw what Chris was trying to tell me all along. Sophie never cared about me, not even in the slightest. All she wanted was to revel in the heartbreak that she had caused and toss me aside like all the others. The rumors about Sophie were true all along. I was just too smitten to believe them. Without sparing Sophie even another second of my time, I sprinted off as quickly as I could, desperately looking for Chris. While running across town in search of Chris, I repeatedly tried to call her phone, hoping to get some indication as to where she'd gone or to hear that she was okay. But with no visual confirmation of where Chris had gone or where she was heading, and not a single one of my calls going through, things were not looking good. Damn it, Chris, pick up! What's the point of having a phone if you never pick up? I ran through the streets, trying to think of a place where Chris might have gone. Had she gone straight home? Was she hiding somewhere in the city? Had she gotten on a train and gone far away? Ordinarily, I would assume that she was okay. I could return home without worrying about her safety and get on with my life unaffected. But after seeing Chris like that, I had no way of knowing what she might do or where she might go. This is bad. I've never seen Chris that angry or emotional before. Because I stopped to talk to Sophie, I have no idea where she's gone. No, calm down. Chris wouldn't do anything reckless. Even if she's a bit impulsive and hot-headed sometimes, she wouldn't get herself in any real trouble. Will she? I shook my head and continued to run. Thinking about what Chris might or might not do would only distract me. For now, all I could do was run down the location she was likely to visit in this kind of situation. And as the person who became Chris's best friend long before the term boyfriend was even in her vocabulary, there was nobody more suited to this role than me. Oops. Let's see. There we go. Found you. Just about ready to collapse, I sat down next to Chris with a thud and immediately lowered my body onto the ground. I'd been running on and off for many hours. Night was almost upon us already, and it was only now that I'd finally found Chris. Took you long enough. Whose fault is that? Clearly it's yours. I've been waiting for you here all day. I was beginning to think that you weren't coming. Too tired to argue, I shook my head and closed my eyes. But you know, maybe it's for the best that you took your time. I wouldn't have wanted you to see me like that anyway. Like that? I opened my eyes and looked up at Chris. On closer inspection, her eyes were red and there were dried tears on her face. For who knows how long, Chris had been sitting here, crying all by herself. Do you remember this place, Kai? It's been a while since we last came here together, but you should still remember it, right? I nodded my head. Of course. We used to play here when we were kids. Until you almost drowned, that is. Chris closed her eyes and smiled. So you do remember? Oops. That must have been 12 or 13 years ago now. Our lives have changed so much since then, and we've experienced so many things, yet I still remember that day clearly. Back then, I thought that everything would stay the same that way forever. I believed that we'd spend our entire lives just playing around, never growing up, having fun together. But after that day, we were forbidden from playing here anymore. My parents started keeping a closer eye on me, telling me what I could and couldn't do, and all at once, I realized how foolish I'd been. Nothing lasts forever. No matter how much fun it is, and how desperately you want to keep clinging to it, all good things must come to an end. What happened today made me remember that. I gulped as I thought back to the event that Chris was now referring to. Chris, I know you probably won't be able to believe me, but earlier, I know. Chris shook her head as the melancholy smile vanished from her face. You do? Of course I do. I know that you would never do something like that, Kai. You're just being manipulated by that woman as usual. Even if you did have the guts to do such a thing, you wouldn't be stupid enough to do it when you were guaranteed to get caught. Ugh. My face contorted in displeasure. I can't say that what you're thinking is wrong, but can't you have a little bit of faith in your boyfriend? Uh-oh. Here it comes. My boyfriend, huh? Chris's lips curled into a sad smile once more. Honestly, how stupid must I be to still get so happy about a silly word like that? And it's not just that either. All week I've been acting like a complete moron. No, don't say that. You were just... It's true, isn't it? Entering your bedroom to wake you up in the morning, feeding you, blushing every time I called us a couple. I immediately got swept up in all of that lovey-dovey crap. I didn't even think about how I was acting or whether it was appropriate behavior. Chris pinched the hem of her skirt with her fingers, then weakly tossed the fabric aside. I must look pretty silly right now, huh? Tomboy Chris, all dressed up for her big date, crying by the water's edge because she's really just a jealous, insecure little girl. I don't even know how you put up with me, Kai. The way I am right now, I can't even stand myself. So you know, I was thinking, if this is what I'm like when I've just barely started dating someone, maybe I'm not cut out for romance. I sat up and looked at Chris with wide eyes. Chris, are you saying what I think you're saying? Chris averted her gaze and nodded. I'm sorry, Kai. I just don't think I'm ready for all this. Earlier today when I saw you and Sylvie together, I got so mad that I wanted to strangle her. When you talk to one another at school, when I see you talking to any other girls, I just get so jealous that I can't stand it. And when I do have you all to myself, I want to be indulged and pampered like we're the only two people in the world. I lose all sense of reason and time, and I act without thinking about the consequences. But I don't want to be this way. I don't want to keep changing into this needy, jealous person. I want to go back to how I was before, when I could keep it all bottled up inside, never losing control for a second. Please, Kai. I know this is selfish of me to ask, but it's for your sake too, so before I do something extreme, will you break up with me? Rather than answer straight away, I stood up and walked behind Chris. Chris instinctively turned her head to face me, and the moment she did, I squatted down and looked her straight in the eye. Kai? I held out my hand, with my palm facing upwards, wordlessly offering to help Chris to her feet. Come on. If you keep sitting there like that, you're going to ruin your dress. Let's go home, Chris. Chris stared at me in shock for a moment, then shook her head. Don't change the subject. Weren't you listening to me, Kai? I want to break up. And I don't. Interrupted mid-sentence, Chris suddenly lost all momentum. Her eyes widened in shock once more, and she struggled to squeeze out a response. What do you mean you don't? I already told you if we don't break up, then I don't know what I'm gonna do. I might hurt someone, or force you to do something you don't want to do, or... As Chris began to work herself into a frenzy, I smiled and placed my hand on her shoulder. Even if you do something crazy, Chris, that won't change how I feel about you. We're in this together, and no matter what happens, I won't abandon you. So please, let's just go home. And if you really can't control yourself, or you feel like you're about to do something extreme, I'll take full responsibility. That's my boy. That's my boy right there. He is a wizard with words. Chris froze up as my words reached her ears. With her eyes still wide open, tears began to trickle down Chris's face, and her shoulders shook from side to side. Minutes passed as I waited in silence. Chris slowly got a hold of herself, and although her face was still bright red, it was no longer covered with tears. Without saying a word, Chris finally took my hand in hers and rose to her feet. It was time to go home. As we walked back home hand in hand, Chris and I did not speak. Instead, we clung to one another tightly, indulging in each other's body warmth as the sun continued to set. We strolled along the path we usually took home from school, holding one another more intimately than we'd ever dare to in front of others, right up until the moment that our houses came into view. And as we approached our homes, or at least one of which was occupied, this did not change. Seeing the lights on at Chris's house, the two of us headed back to my home one more time. Upon returning, we quickly checked to see if my mother was present. After confirming that she was still out, we headed upstairs to my room and separated from one another at last. I provided Chris with a change of clothes, mindful of how dirty her dress had gotten from sitting on the riverbank. And then, I waited. With the sound of water falling on Chris's naked body clearly audible a few doors away, I waited my turn to do the same. I listened, unconsciously remembering the night when I peeped on Chris, and naturally began to feel aroused. But before I could contemplate acting on my arousal, the water stopped. I sat down in a fluster, trying to cover my erection as I heard Chris's footsteps encroach upon my door. A moment later, my bedroom door swung open, revealing a sight I desperately wanted to see again. Let's go! Round 2, baby! Chris's naked body. Chris, what are you... Don't talk. Before I could even stand back up, Chris walked over to my side and pushed me down. She moved my body around as she pleased, then proceeded to kneel over me, giving me an up-close, unobstructed view of her beautiful body. Panicking, I automatically turned my head and tried to look away. Look at me, Kai. Bring this image into your mind and never forget it. Unimpressed by my resistance, Chris grabbed my head with both hands and forced me to look at her. With a bright red face and moist, puffy skin, Chris lowered her body onto mine, making escape even less feasible. Our date isn't over yet, Kai. Today was stressful, and we didn't get to do any of the things that I wanted to. But as long as we're together, there's still time. Chris let go of my face and started pulling at my shirt. She slid my shirt up to my armpits, exposing my chest and stomach, then she ran her hand down my bare torso. If we only get to do one date-like thing today, let it be this. Don't look at her or think about anyone or anything else. For once, look only at me, just as I've only ever had eyes for you. Chris tried to pull my shirt over my head. Conceding to her willpower, I raised my arms and allowed her to cast the clothing aside. The next moment, I felt a similar sensation below. When I looked down, I realized that my pants were halfway down my legs. I hurriedly grabbed the waistline of my pants before Chris could strip me any further. Chris, don't you think this is too much? I mean, I know we're both adults now, but this is... Chris covered my mouth with her own, fiercely pressing her lips against mine. I unknowingly let go of my pants as my eyes widened in shock. I could feel Chris more closely than ever before, and all at once, I allowed her to overwhelm me. My first kiss. Chris's first kiss. Our first kiss. A physical expression of the affection Chris felt for me. A sensation associated with feelings far more powerful than I dared to accept. And this is really happening. My heart began to beat wildly as reality caught up with me. What Chris was saying earlier about the jealousy she felt, and how she wanted to be indulged, only now was it dawning on me. This was the kind of relationship we'd entered. I'm not even gonna. Y'all can read that yourselves. Have fun with that, bro. While I was frozen in shock, Chris's soft lips continued to move clumsily until she finally pulled back. Ha ha. So this is what she tastes like. I stared up at Chris in a daze as I slowly returned to my senses. Chris smiled down at me, her face flushed, with a strand of saliva still hanging from her lips. Chris, If you don't have anything romantic to say, don't say anything at all. Chris pressed her lips against mine once more. Unlike before, this time she pulled back almost immediately as though teasing me. You said you would take responsibility earlier, didn't you? I warned you that I wouldn't be able to control myself, and that I might do something like this. No, but that was... It's too late to take back what she said, Kai. Chris used her feet to push my pants down further. With my pants now down around my ankles, I gulped as Chris reached for my final layer of clothing. And for a moment, even Chris hesitated. She reached for my underwear, but retracted her hand at the last second, both excited and scared to take that next step. However, her reservation was quickly overcome by lust. Chris yanked down my boxers in one go, revealing the erection I had so desperately tried to hide. What? This is your... penis? Of course. Of course that's what it is. What else could it be? Momentarily losing her cool, and allowing her complete lack of sexual experience to show, Chris's face was dyed red as she stared fixedly at my penis. So this is the real thing. And with that, I'll... Chris gulped nervously. Her arousal and willpower had taken it this far, but now that we were at the cusp of crossing that final line, Chris hesitated. Chris, we don't have to do this. We can always just... Shut up! I'm doing it, okay? I just need a minute to prepare myself. I sighed in relief as Chris refused my lifeline. Although I was every bit as nervous as Chris, I'd given up on trying to stop her. My offer was one made purely out of consideration. Because even if I wouldn't admit it, I wanted to do this too. I realize that now. Tell me if this hurts, okay? Chris impulsively grabbed my penis with her hand. The second she did so, Chris immediately let go in panic, clearly flustered by her own action. But after a few brief moments of contact, lightly tapping it as though cautious not to get burned, Chris finally took hold once more and started to move her hand. Like this, right? Is this good? Am I doing it correctly? Yeah, just like that, Chris. I'll tell you if you do anything wrong. Okay. Having lost her composure and forcefulness from before, Chris timidly sought my approval as she moved her hand up and down. Her eyes darted back and forth between my face and my thing, curious about how I'd react, but also mindful about performing the unfamiliar act correctly. Unfortunately for me, although she wasn't doing anything wrong, The weak stimulation Chris provided was more akin to teasing than anything else. Chris, oh shit. Chris, can you, go a bit faster? Faster? Oh, right, let me see. Chris watched her hand as she sped up, but as her speed increased, Chris's movements became more sloppy and sporadic. From her position, she was having enough difficulty performing the unfamiliar act at a low speed, let alone now. Kai, if you can... Me too? Chris stared at my face once more, gazing at me with upturned eyes. With my eyes glued to hers, I could feel but not see the change going on around our genitals. Chris had let go of my penis, and a sensation unlike anything I'd ever felt before sent a chill up my spine. Warm, wet, and soft. Something had taken the place of Chris's hand, teasing me in new and unexpected ways. I was reaching my limit. Kai, with you? I know I should have the courage to see this through myself, but now that we're here, Chris averted her eyes and spoke meekly, embarrassed and afraid to go any further. For all of her talk until this point, Chris was still just a teenage girl. This was all new to her, as it was to me, and she lacked the resolve to see it through on her own. Fortunately, she wouldn't have to. Damn, that's one hell of a view. Kai, it hurts. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I'll pull out, okay? Just give me a... No, don't pull out. Please, let's just stay like this for a while, okay? In response to Chris's pleading, I took the lead. I kicked off my lower pants and underwear, swapped positions with Chris, and penetrated her without hesitation. Unfortunately, my haste had proven problematic. Chris immediately reeled in pain as tears formed in the corners of her eyes, telling me to stop. Kai. Hold me tight and don't let go. With our sexual advances momentarily halted, Chris feebly raised her arms and wrapped them around my back. I lowered my torso onto hers and kissed Chris gently. Kai, I love you, Kai. I know I don't always act like it, but I really do. I kissed Chris once more and cut off her sweet words. It's okay, Chris. I understand how you feel now. And, I averted my gaze in embarrassment. I love you too. I wasn't sure if it was just as a friend or maybe something else, but I think that Kai! Chris grabbed my head with both hands and pulled our lips together yet again. With excitement and force reminiscent of earlier, Chris clumsily yet eagerly sucked on my lips. Chris paid no heed to her appearance as saliva spread across our mouths, painting a rather depraved picture as we awkwardly expressed our love. I love you, Kai. I love you, I love you, I love you. I know that already. You don't need to keep saying it. But I want to. I've been holding back for so long now, Chris pulled my face close once more, pressing her lips against mine with almost violent force. Kai, I just feel so happy and excited and alright, I get it. Just calm down. Chris shook her head. Not gonna happen. I warned you that I was gonna do something extreme and this is it. Surprised, I looked down at our genitals as the brief sensation from earlier returned. Despite being on the bottom, Chris was slowly pushing her hips up and down, continuing where we left off. Hey, stop that! Doesn't that hurt? Once again, Chris shook her head. A little bit, but it's okay now. Compared to the pain of enduring a one-sided love for so long, this is nothing. Chris. For a moment, I looked down at Chris with a sense of pity and remorse. I felt bad about everything that had happened. I felt guilty about hurting her so badly and for so long. But as suddenly as that feeling took root inside me, it disappeared, replaced by the desire to make Chris happy from now on. While I couldn't change the past, I could at least learn from it. I would never make the same mistakes again, no matter what. Let me do that, Chris. You've done enough already. I pushed down with my hips and slowly penetrated Chris, careful not to hurt her like before. After a few thrusts, however, Chris wrapped her legs around my buttocks, preventing me from moving. Chris? Chris placed her index finger on my lips and smiled. You're wrong, Kai. I haven't done enough. Not yet. Chris grabbed my right hand and brought it to her chest. She then clamped her hand around mine, forcing me to grab her breast. Until you're completely convinced that I'm a girl, not just in the body, but in mind, I won't be satisfied. Chris released her hand from mine, then removed her other hand from my mouth. Glancing down at her smiling face, I sighed and shook my head. You idiot. I already know that you're a girl. You don't have anything left to prove to me. Yeah, Kai! I squeezed Chris's breast as I spoke, then brought my face to her other nipple. Without hesitation, I began to suck on her soft breasts, taking her pink nipple into my mouth with glee. No, that's... Ah! Kai, stop! My nipples are too... God, this is awkward. I could feel Chris contract around me as I played with her nipples. Sorry, my dog. Every time I gently bit her nipple or rolled it around with my thumb and index finger, Chris shuddered in delight. I'm serious. Please, I can't. With Chris now distracted and shuddering too fiercely to maintain her leg strength, she let go of my buttocks, allowing me to begin thrusting once more. I plunged deep inside of Chris as her walls spasmed, squeezing me tightly and causing the pleasure I felt to soar. Chris's insides, already tight and wet from the moment we started, now felt so hot that I thought I would get scalded. Her bodily fluids leaked out without stopping, diluting the blood from her hymen and causing the stain on my sheets to grow even wider. A squelching sound could now be heard reverberating throughout the room, stopped only by the heavy breathing of Chris and I as we each neared climax. Kai, I'm scared. I've never felt like this before, Kai. I'm about to... Ah! Just a little longer, Chris. Just another... Chris, I'm... As I felt the final moment draw near, I retracted my hips to pull out. But the moment I tried to do so, Chris wrapped her legs around my buttocks once more, making it impossible. Chris, what do you think you're... Do it, Kai. Do it now. Let go, Chris. I'm really going to... Yes, do it. Together, let's... Chris put strength into her hips and legs in order to move her waist up and down, all the while keeping her legs locked around me. Already on the brink, I couldn't hold back anymore. Kai! Damn, Chris is freaky with it. On that day, our first date ended without Chris and I going to a single venue together. Our date took an unexpected turn, leading to us performing an act that neither of us had planned on, and ended with us spending one final night in the same house. It was a horrible attempt at a first date. There was far too much drama throughout, and if not for Chris's forcefulness, it might have ended without a single couple-like event. But even as we looked back at our emotional and eventful first date, neither one of us regretted the way things turned out. Chris and I had shared our true feelings. We grew closer than ever before, and gained a deeper understanding of not only one another, but of ourselves. Our first date had turned into an important turning point in our lives. It served as a platform to elevate our relationship in wonderful and unexpected ways, and it became the first of many more to come. Is that our happy ending? It is. Ending 5 of 5, happily ever after. So I guess there's 5 other endings that we could have got. Alright! I think that was probably the most, like... How would I put it? I guess it was the most, like, raw depiction that I've ever had the displeasure of reading out. I think other than that, probably a close follow-up would be, God, what is it called? Gray something? What was it called? Crimson Gray, I think, something like that. I think that's probably the only other one that's, like, been so, like, raw and raunchy. Can I think of anything else? No, not really. I mean, there had to have been some stuff, like, from a while ago, right? But nothing as of recent. Alright. Oh, shit. Okay, we got more. 7 years passed by since Chris and I first became a couple. We spent 7 long years studying, working, dating, and generally just figuring out how life of an adult worked. We saved up our money, started renting a small apartment of our own, and worked our hardest to make sure that we'll have the time for one another at the end of a busy day. And now, after many years of struggling to make ends meet, Chris and I finally managed to do something that we had talked about for so many years. I'm sorry, Chris. I know this isn't the ceremony that you had in mind. I'd like to splash out and give you a glamorous wedding, but money is a bit... Chris shook her head. Don't apologize. I already told you I don't need a big cake or a fancy dress. We're here because we love each other. That's all that matters. Krista moved one hand from her bouquet and took my hand in hers. I looked down at Chris, who was still half a head shorter than me, and smiled. You're right. This day's about us, not our finances. And I do love you, Chris, more than anything else in the world. Chris blushed but didn't turn away. Instead, she stood on her toes and brought her face to mine, planting a gentle kiss on my lips. Jeez, Kai. Keep talking like that and we'll have to cut the ceremony short. I'm already doing my best to keep myself from jumping you right here and now. That would be kind of bad. Do you think any of your friends from work would save me? They probably would. That's why I didn't invite them. Seriously? When Chris finished high school, she didn't waste any time taking a gap year or trying to figure out what job might suit her best. In her typical headstrong fashion, Chris enrolled in the police academy one town over the same day that she graduated. Just over 1 year later, she was a rookie police officer. And now, 6 years after that, she was a bona fide detective. Damn, what the fuck? Oh well, I suppose it's for the best. Limiting the ceremony to family makes it easier to manage. Yeah, that's true. But you know... Chris tightened her grip on my hand and began to sway her body from side to side. Even if it was just the two of us going to City Hall together, I'd be perfectly fine with that. Because at the end of the day, all I want is to be able to call you my husband, and for you to call me your wife. I chuckled to myself and brought my free hand to Chris's waist. I feel the same way. Spending this day with family is nice and all, but the one who I really want to be with is my wife. I pulled Chris closer and lowered my head, planting on her a kiss akin to the one she just gave me. Oh, come on, what did I just say? If you keep sweet-talking me like that, I really am gonna tackle you to the ground in front of everyone. Sorry. I just can't help myself. Damn. When I look at you like this... Chris released my hand and brought her index finger to my lips. Not another word. Until the ceremony's over, you're forbidden from saying anything even remotely romantic. And if you do, then I'll arrest you on the spot, whether you're my husband or not. That's rather harsh. What about after the ceremony? Chris's lips curled up into a devious smile, as if she'd been anticipating that very question. Once the rule is over, the rules are reversed. Even though you've had today... Oh, every thought you've had today, no matter how corny or lewd, you're gonna whisper into my ear and drive me crazy. And for every shiver your words send up my spine, I'm gonna pay you back twofold. From the moment we return home, I'm not gonna hold back, and I don't want you to do so either. We'll spend our first night together as husband and wife, consummate our marriage, and start our new life together with a bang. Finally, when the day is over, and our first night as husband and wife has come to an end... The corners of Chris's mouth elevated, warping her lust-filled smirk into an innocent, radiant smile. We won't need any more self-imposed rules. You'll keep whispering romantic words into my ear all on your own, and I'll show you even more love than you can handle. We'll continue to live at the absolute pinnacle of happiness together, and nobody will come between us ever again. Aw, well that was sweet. We got our happily ever after. Okay. Well, comparatively to a lot of the other games I've played, it's very short, sweet, simple. I liked it. Obviously there's definitely going to be a path where we go down with Sophie. I probably won't come back to this game just because I've got some other ones lined up that I want to get to. But this was really solid, and I think... I don't even know if I paid any money for it. If I did, I would say it's worth the money in my opinion. I very much enjoyed this. But yeah, that was sweet. Got married. She became a fucking detective, which is really cool and fits her very well. I kind of wonder what we ended up doing though, because like, are we just kind of freeloading or what? You know, we're only able to live in a tiny apartment, but it's like, surely a detective salary isn't that terrible in combination with whatever we're doing, right? Like, come on. I do kind of wonder if there is an ending where we end up with Sophie, does it end in like a similar fashion, right? Where we live our lives out, get married, and all that fun stuff. I do wonder if there's like an ending where that is the case. Probably not, because I feel like Sophie would totally have just tossed us aside like she did with everybody else. But yeah, that was a very good game. I enjoyed it. Yeah, that's all I really have to say about it. I know I didn't really expect it to end this episode, but yeah, it was ended. It was again easily the most like raunchy, censor requiring game that I think I've ever played on this channel, aside from like the actual just straight up like 18 plus games that we played. But aside from those, I think this is definitely it. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this time. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you didn't, make sure to leave a like on the video and tell me in the comment section below what you'd like to see me play next. If you enjoyed this video or any other videos or series on my channel, then I highly recommend that you hit the subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you'll be notified when a new one of those videos comes out. Anyways, that's it from me, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!